just wanna walk with you, Lord. Walk with you and talk with you every day.
Shabbat Shalom. Today's date is Saturday, April 21st, and we are resuming for our reading plan where we left off 2 weeks ago. So I want to say welcome to those in YouTube land. Thank you for taking the opportunity to listen here to the reading here on the Sabbath here. So today we're going to be in Jasher chapter 33 and Genesis chapter 34. And so Virtue, if you don't mind, press *6 to unmute yourself and read Jasher chapter 33.
And in some time after Jacob went away from the borders of the land, and he came to the land of Shalem, and that is the city of Shechem, which is the land of Canaan, and he rested in front of the city. And he bought a parcel of the field which was there from the children of Hamor, the people of the land, for 5 shekels. And Jacob there built on himself a house, and he pitched his tent there. And he made booths for his cattle. Therefore he called the name of that place Succoth. And Jacob remained in Succoth a year and 6 months. And at that time some of the women of the inhabitants of the land went to the city of Shechem to dance and rejoice with the daughters of the people of the city. And when they went forth, then Rachel and Leah, the wives of Jacob, with their families, also went to behold the rejoicing of the daughters of the city. And Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, also went along with them and saw the daughters of the city. And they remained there before these daughters, whilst all the people of the city were standing by them to behold the rejoicing. And all that the great people of the city were there. And Shechem, the son of Hamor, the prince of the land, was also standing there to see them. And Shechem beheld Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, sitting with her mother before the daughters of the city, and the damsel pleased him greatly. And he there asked his friends and his people, saying, Whose daughter is that sitting amongst the women, whom I do not know in the city? And they said unto him, Surely this is the daughter of Jacob, the son of Isaac and the Hebrew, who has dwelt in the city for some time. And when it was reported that the daughters of the land were going forth to rejoice, she went with her mother and made servants to sit amongst them, as thou seest. And Shechem beheld Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and when he looked at his soul became fixed upon Dinah. And he sent and had her taken by force. And Dinah came to the house of Shechem, and he seized her forcibly, and lay with her, and humbled her. And he loved her exceedingly, and placed her in his house. And they came and told the thing to Jacob. And when Jacob heard that Shechem had defiled his daughter Dinah, Jacob sent 12 of his servants to fetch Dinah from the house of Shechem, and they went and came to the house of Shechem to take away Dinah from there. And when they came, Shechem went out to them with his men and drove them from his house, and he would not suffer them to come before Dinah. But Shechem was sitting upon Dinah, kissing and embracing her before their eyes. And the servants of Jacob came back and told him, saying, When we came, he and his men drove us away, and thus did Shechem do unto Dinah before our eyes. And Jacob knew moreover that Shechem had defiled his daughter, but he said nothing. And his sons were feeding his cattle in the field, and Jacob remained silent till their return. And before his sons came unto Jacob, sent 2 maidens from his servants' daughters to take care of Dinah in the house of Shechem, and to remain with her. And Shechem sent 3 of his friends to his father Hamor, the son of Cherechem, the son of Pered, saying, Get me this damsel for a wife. And Hamor, the son of Cherechem, the Hivite, came to the house of Shechem his son, and he sat before him. And Hamor said unto his son, Shechem, is there then no women amongst the daughters of thy people, that thou wilt take a Hebrew woman who is not of thy people? And Shechem said to him, Her only must thou get for me, for she is delightful in my sight. And Hamor did according to the word of his son, for he was greatly beloved by him. And Hamor went forth to Jacob to commune with him concerning the matter. And when he had gone from the house of his son Shechem, before he came to Jacob to speak unto him, behold, the sons of Jacob had come from the field, as soon as they heard the thing that Shechem the son of Hamor had done. And the men were very much grieved concerning their sister, and they all come home fired of anger before the time of gathering their cattle. And they came and sat before their father, and they spoke unto him, and kindled of wrath, saying, Surely death is to do this man and into his household, because the Lord God of the whole earth commanded Noah and his children, the men shall never rob, nor commit adultery. Now, behold, Shechem has both ravaged and committed fornication of her sister, and now one of all the people of the city spoke a word to him. Surely thou knowest and understandest that the judgment of death is to do to Shechem and to his father and the whole city on account of the thing which he has done. And whilst they were speaking before their father in this matter, behold, Hamor and the father of Shechem came to speak to Jacob the words of his son concerning Dinah, and he sat before Jacob before his sons. And Hamor spoke unto them, saying, The son of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you give her unto him for a wife, and intermarry with us. Give us your daughter, and we will give you our daughters. And you shall dwell with us in our land, and we will be as one people in the land. And for our land is very expensive, so dwell ye and trade therein and get possessions in it, and do therein as you desire. And no one shall prevent you by saying a word to you. Now more ceased speaking unto Jacob and his sons, and behold, Shechem his son had come after him, and he sat before him. And Jacob spoke unto Jacob and his sons, saying, May I find favor in your sight, that you will give me your daughter, and whatever you say unto me, that I will do for her. And ask me for abundance to dowry and gift, and I will give it. And whatever you shall say unto me, that I will do. And whoever he be that will rebel against your orders, he shall die. Only give me the damsel for a wife. And Simeon and Levi answered Hamor and Shechem his son deceitfully, saying, All you have spoken to us, we will do for you. And behold, our sister is in your house, but keep away from her until we send to our father Isaac concerning this matter, for we can do nothing without his consent. Before he knoweth that the way of our father Abraham, and whatever he saith unto us, we will tell you. Ye will conceal nothing from you. And Simeon and Levi spoke unto Shechem and his father in order to find a pretext and to seek counsel what was to be done to Shechem and to his city in this matter. And when Shechem and his father heard the words of Simeon and Levi, it seemed good in their sight. And Shechem and his father came forth to go home. And when they had gone, the sons of Jacob said unto their father, saying, Behold, we know that death is due to these wicked ones and their city, because they transgressed that which God had commanded unto Noah and his children and seed after them. And also because Shechem did this thing to our sister Dinah, is defiling her, for such a vileness shall never be done amongst us. Now therefore know and see what you will do, and seek counsel and pretext what it is to be done to them, in order to kill all the inhabitants of the city. And Simeon said to them, Here is the proper advice for you. Tell them to circumcise every male amongst them, as we are circumcised. And if they do not wish to do this, we shall take their daughter. We shall take our daughter away from them and go away. And if they consent to this and will do it, then we will. Then when they are sunk down with pain, we will attach them with our swords at the palm, one who is quiet and peaceful, and we shall slay every male person among them. And Simeon's advice pleased them, and Simeon and Levi resolved unto them as it was proposed. And on the next morning, Shechem and Hamor his father came unto Jacob and his sons to speak concerning Dinah, and to hear what answer the sons of Jacob would give their words. And the sons of Jacob spoke deceitfully to them, saying, We told our father Isaac all your words, and your words pleased them. But he spoke unto us, saying, Thus said Abraham his father commanded him from God, the Lord of the whole earth, that any man who is not of his descendants that should wish to take one of his daughters shall cause every male belonging to him to be circumcised, as we are circumcised, and that we may give him our daughter for a wife. Now we have made known to you all our ways that our father spoke unto us, for we cannot do this for which you speak unto us, to give our daughters unto uncircumcised men, or it is disgrace to us. But herein we will consent to you to give you our daughter, and we will also take unto ourselves your daughters. We will dwell amongst you and be one people as you have spoken. If you hearken to us and consent to be like us, to circumcise every male belonging to you as we have circumcised. If you will not hearken unto us to have every male circumcised, we will circumcise, and as we have commanded, then we will come to see you and take our daughter from you and go away. And Shechem and his father Hamor heard the words of the sons of Jacob, and the thing pleased them exceedingly. And Shechem and his father Hamor hastened to the wishes of the sons of Jacob, for Shechem was very fond of Dinah, and his sons was riveted to her. And Shechem and his father Hamor hastened to the gate of the city, and they assembled all the men of their city, and spoke unto them the words of the sons of Jacob, saying, We came to these men, the sons of Jacob, and we spoke unto them concerning their daughters, and these men will consent according to our wishes. And behold, our land is of great extent for them, and they will dwell in it, and trade in it. And we will be one people. We will take their daughters, and our daughters we will give unto them for wives. But only on this condition will these men consider this thing, that every male amongst us be circumcised, as they are circumcised, as their God commanded them, and we shall have done according to their instructions to be circumcised. Then we will dwell amongst us. Then they will dwell amongst us with their cattle and possessions, and we shall be as one people with them. And when all the men of the city heard the words of Shechem and his father Hamor, then all the men of their city were agreeable to this proposal, and they agreed to be circumcised. For Shechem and his father Hamor were greatly esteemed by them, being the prince of the land. And on the next day, Shechem and Hamor, his father, was up early in the morning, and they assembled all their men of their city into the middle of the city, and they called for the sons of Jacob, who circumcised every male belonging to them on that day and the next. And they circumcised Shechem and Hamor his father, and the 5 brothers of Shechem, and then everyone rose up and went home. For this thing was from the Lord against the city of Shechem, and from the Lord was Simeon's counsel in this matter, in order that the Lord might deliver the city of Shechem into the hands of Jacob's 2 sons.
All right, thank you, Virtue. That was the reading there of the book of Jasher, chapter 33. And so we'll give a summary here. So, as we can see here, Jacob is actually going from the borders of the land, and he came into Shalem, which is in the city of Shechem. All right, or basically it's the same as the city of Shechem. Now, Shechem was actually a city in the land of Canaan. And, of course, for those that don't remember, the whole land of Israel was called the land of Canaan first. And if you all remember back, that is because of the fact that Ham's 4th son, Canaan, went and illegally dwelled in that land when he should not have. That we covered that in the previous lesson. But so, of course, Shechem was in the land of Canaan. And while Jacob was there, he bought a field from the children of Hamor. Now, Hamor was the son of an actual a Canaanite. His father was a Hivite, I believe it was. But either way, they were Canaanites. All right. And Jacob bought a field from there and pitched his tent. And, of course, he made tents for his cattle, or booths. And, of course, after that, the place was called Sukkot afterwards. All right. So Jacob was there about, as it says there in verse 4, a year and 6 months. Now, at this time, you had the inhabitants of the land of Canaan, going to the city of Shechem, and they were dancing and rejoicing. There were some kind of celebrations taking place. And so at that time, Leah and Rachel, the wives of Jacob, also, noticed this as well, and they began to be celebrating and things like that with the women that were in Shechem. And so Dinah, Jacob's daughter, was actually among them also. And she went there also to be dancing and celebrating, things like that. And so you have Shechem, who's the son of Hamor, and who actually the city is named after. So this is his city, the prince of that city, standing there. And, of course, he saw all this happening. So Shechem actually sees Dinah, all right, and when he sees her, he's asking his friends, hey, who is that? You know what I mean? I've never seen her before. And they tell him, okay, hey, this is the daughter of Jacob, who's the son of Isaac the Hebrew. And, they've dwelt in the city for some time now. Because remember, by this point, Jacob had already been there a year and 6 months. All right? So at this point, you have Shechem inquiring about Jacob's daughter, Dinah. And so, of course, he received the information from the others about how this is Jacob's daughter and things like that. And so he saw Dinah, and, of course, when he saw Dinah, as it says in verse 10, his soul became fixed upon her. So it was, you can almost say like, I guess, a crush, kind of. And so what he did, though, was instead of going to Dinah and talking to her, or, talking to her father, actually, as they would have done back in that time, he seized her by force and raped her. All right, so in verse 11, when it says he humbled her, anytime the scripture says that a man humbled a woman, it means that he either, that he had some kind of sexual relations with her. All right, so of course he raped her, and it says in verse 11 he loved her exceedingly. So he was taken over by a heat of passion, and he raped Dinah. So he forced himself on her, and so of course Jacob had actually got wind of this, and that what Shechem had done to his daughter. And so he sent his servants at that point to go get Dinah from Shechem's house. And of course, when they came to Shechem's house, Shechem had his own men who drove them away from the house. He wouldn't allow them to actually take Dinah back to her father Jacob. All right. Now it says in verse 13 that Shechem was sitting with Dinah, kissing and embracing her before the eyes of Jacob's messengers. So it was almost like he was rubbing it even in their face, like, no, you ain't taking her back, and then kissing on her and hugging her or whatever. So basically like saying, hey, she's mine now. And for those that don't understand, when you read the Bible and you understand when a man went into a woman, essentially the woman became like his property. I know that's not something that we like to hear, but it doesn't mean that the man was to mistreat her. He was supposed to take care of her. The Bible always outlines the provisions that a man is supposed to provide for his wife and his children. But the thing is, she belonged to him at that point, because before then, she was in the house of her father, and she belonged to her father, which is why the man would actually pay a dowry to the father before he could take the father's daughter. Again, that's a side note, but just saying that because some people don't actually know that out there. And hold on, Virtue. Hold on. Wait till the end. So this is, of course, what at this point, of course, Shechem drove the men away. And as it says in verse 15, Jacob he'd known that Shechem had actually raped his daughter, but he didn't say anything at this time. His sons were feeding in the field, feeding the cattle and things like that, and Jacob actually just remained silent about it until they actually returned from their duties. And so, of course, as it says in verse 16, and before his sons came home, Jacob sent 2 maidens from his servants' daughters to take care of Dinah in the house of Shechem. So you have Jacob at this point sending 2, servant girls to go and actually take care of Dinah while she's in the house of Shechem. Because remember, Shechem's not allowing Dinah to leave. All right? And so Shechem sent 3 of his friends to his father, Hamor, the son of Kittikim, the son of Perez, saying, get me this damsel for a wife. So at this point, Shechem is telling his father, look, I want you to get this woman for me as my wife. Now remember, Shechem's already raped her at this point, though. And so Hamor, Shechem's actual father, and it says in verse 17, he was a Hivite. We know the Hivites were one of the actual tribes, if you will, of the Canaanites. All right? He talked to Shechem, and it's interesting what he says to Shechem. He says, is there no woman amongst the daughters of thy people that thou wilt take a Hebrew woman that is not of thy people? Now, I mention this because here's the thing. If we all really understand, all these people were people of color. So it was not the bounds of color that actually made them be tied to one another as one nation. It was about, their actual nationhood. Nationhood is not the same as what color someone is. That was something started by Johann Blumenbach in the 17th century about color denoting race. But that was never something that was done back then. Hamor, Shechem, they knew that the Hebrews were different people than them. And that's the reason why Hamor asked his son Shechem, hey, isn't there enough among your own people to take a daughter of your own people? Now, of course, Shechem said to him in verse 18 that he only wants Dinah, that he's delighted with her and all these things. And, of course, Hamor, because he greatly beloved his son Shechem, did according to what Shechem asked him to. So, of course, Hamor goes, to Jacob to talk with him about the matter. And, of course, when he had gone from the house of his son Shechem and came to Jacob, the sons of Jacob were there in the field. And when they heard this thing that Shechem had done, of course, their reaction was not one of gladness, to say the least. All right, they were very much grieved by this, as it says in verse 20, and they had a lot of anger. And so at this time, they sat before Jacob, and they were talking to Jacob about this, and they were, as it says in verse 21, kindled with wrath. And they also said, hey, death is due to this man and to his whole household. Now, not only did they say it to his whole household, but they even said to it the whole city. Now, that's interesting if everyone thinks about that, okay? Because there's this point where people say if someone does something wrong and then no one speaks up about it, then that's almost like acquiescence. That's almost like you being in agreement with it by not saying anything. But I'm going to read it to you. He says in verse 21, this is Jacob's sons talking to him, saying, surely death is due to this man and to his household, because the Lord God of the whole earth commanded Noah and his children that man shall never rob nor commit adultery. And now, behold, Shechem has both ravished and committed fornication with our sister. And here's the key part. Not one of all the people of the city spoke a word to him. It's that key point right there, which is why the sons of Jacob say that the whole city needs to be killed, because nobody spoke up for righteousness. That's the point. And then he says, verse 22, surely thou knowest and understanding that the judgment of death is due to Shechem and to his father and to the whole city on account of this thing being done. See, they wouldn't have said that had someone in the city had actually spoke up saying, hey, no, Shechem, what you did was wrong. That was not righteous. So, of course, while they were talking to Jacob about this, Hamor, who was Shechem's father, came to also talk to Jacob about actually giving Dinah as a wife to his son. All right? So at this point, Hamor is talking to him, and he's telling him, hey, look, my son Shechem, he's in love with your daughter. He's longing for your daughter. I pray that you give her to him as a wife and to marry with us. All right? And then not only does Hamor ask Jacob that, he also asked Jacob to give their nation, they're in Shechem, their city, his daughters, and that they would in turn give their daughters back to Jacob and his sons. And he says that you can dwell with us in our land, and we will be as one people in the land. And then, of course, he starts talking about how extensive, vast the land is and things like that. And, of course, we already know the land is vast because the Bible constantly refers to the land of Canaan as a land flowing with milk and honey. And as Sister Merlene brought out a point before, talking about how fertile the land was. All right? So, of course, Hamor is going into that, basically trying to sell Jacob on the idea of giving his daughters to Hamor and his sons and everything to wife, and then him giving his daughters to them to wife, so they can live as one people. All right? So, of course, he tells them about the land, and he tells them no one is going to prevent you from doing this or say a word to you about it. And so, of course, after Hamor is done speaking to Jacob about it, Shechem himself comes to speak to Jacob as well. Now, imagine this. Imagine you're a father, and this man raped your daughter, and he's now going to come talk to you about your daughter for you to give your daughter to him to be his wife. Now, as a father myself who has a little girl, I will be incensed, and I would even think that's an act of disrespect, that you're going to rape her first, and then you're going to ask me to marry her? Matter of fact, they would have to do something to keep me off of this man. You know what I mean? But this is what Shechem did. Remember, he already showed arrogance before when Jacob sent his messengers there to fetch Dinah out of his hand, out of his household. And, of course, Shechem wouldn't allow them to actually take Dinah away. And then he was sitting there kissing and holding Dinah right there in their face. So he's already showed some kind of arrogance. Now he's talking to Jacob about allowing him to take his daughter for his wife. So in verse 27, he's speaking to him, asking him, can he find favors in his sight for Jacob to give him his daughter? And then he tells Jacob, whatever you say to me, I'm going to do it for her. And then, of course, he tells Jacob, hey, you can ask me for a huge dowry. And for those that don't remember, a dowry was what the the payment that the man would give to the father in order to take the father's daughter as his wife. All right? So he's telling Jacob, hey, you can ask the abundance of a dowry and a gift. I'll give it to you. Whatever you say unto me, I'll do. And whoever be that will rebel against your orders, he shall die. Only give me your daughter for a wife. But Simeon and Levi are watching this, all right? Simeon and Levi, they told Hamor and Shechem, his son, they told him something that was deceitful, all right? Because remember, the sons of Jacob are really upset about this whole matter. And so they tell him in verse 29, all that you've spoken, we will do. Behold, our sister is in your house. But don't go back to her. Don't go back to her to be intimate with her until after we talk to our father Isaac concerning this. For we can't do anything without his consent. So we see there, Simeon and Levi are telling Shechem and Hamor something that's not true at this point, right? And then they go on to say how Isaac knows all the ways of our father Abraham, and whatever he says, we're going to do, and we're not going to hold anything back from you about it. So, of course, Simeon and Levi, they told this to Shechem and his father so that they could have a reason in order to actually, seek counsel or basically decide what they were going to do to Shechem and to the city. So, of course, Shechem and his father Hamor, they heard these words, and, of course, to them, they were like, okay, cool, yeah, this sounds good. Yeah, go do what you got to do, Simeon and Levi. Now, when Simeon and Levi left, you have the sons of Jacob talking to him again, saying, in verse 34, again, the death is due to Shechem and his father and to their whole city because of the fact that they actually raped Dinah and they transgressed what the Most High commanded Noah and his children after him to do. Basically, he commanded Noah and his children to be righteous. And we are, of course, today children of those of Noah and his children. And so he says, of course, they have saying to Jacob, because Shechem did this thing to our sister and defiled her, such vileness shall never be done amongst us. So, verse 36, they're telling Jacob, what you're going to do, what's going to be done to them. What's going to be done so that we can go ahead and kill all the inhabitants of the city. So here's the thing. It's not that they were actually seeking counsel on what to do. They were seeking counsel on how to go about killing everybody in the city. So, of course, Simeon said to him, and he came up with a plan. I'll tell you what. Let's tell them that they have to circumcise all the men in their city, all right? And if they do not do this, we're going to take Dinah away from them and go away. But if they agree to do it, then once they're actually in pain from the circumcision, we're going to attack their city, and we're going to kill every one of them. He said they're going to kill every male person among them. That's in verse 38. Remember, they're taking out vengeance against the whole city because no one in the city spoke up to say that this was wrong what Shechem did to Dinah. So, of course, what happens? The sons of Jacob, they're all pleased with this. They're happy to do this, and they say, yeah, let's get it done. So the next morning, of course, Shechem and his father Hamor, they came down to Jacob and his sons to speak concerning Dinah. And, of course, the sons of Jacob, they told him, hey, look, we talked to our dad Isaac. All your words, he was pleased with it. And so, verse 42, they said, but, hey, Abraham, was commanded by the Most High, basically that we had to be actually circumcised. So if you're going to be taking Dinah as a wife, you and all the males in your city are going to have to be circumcised. All right? Now, it's interesting because the fact of the matter is these were different people. And there's a statement here in verse, let's see here. It's one of the verses here where Hamor specifically says that they're going to do as Jacob and his sons have said according to their God. The fact that he actually says that shows the fact that these people will be people that an Israelite will be unequally yoked with. Because why? They don't have the same God. That's the reason why Deuteronomy 7 talks about strange wives. It's the reason why the Most High told the Israelites not to marry the people, the inhabitants of the land, because they worshiped a different God. They didn't follow the laws of the Most High. They had their own gods. So, of course, Shechem and Hamor, they agreed to this, of course, and all the men of the city at that point, were circumcised, and that's pretty much what happened from this chapter there. All right, so let me go ahead and actually unmute. So at this point here, that was the summary of Jasher chapter 33. And now, does anyone have any comments or anything they want to say? Virtue, I know you already had one, so go ahead.
So like, you think like she'd be disobeying God if she didn't leave him, even though he was the one that raped her?
Will she be disobeying God if she left him? Is what you're asking?
Yeah.
Well, was he her husband?
No, but I'm saying because you said that like once a man goes inside a woman that like then like she's their property or whatever. But like
right. But the woman has to be willing
for that situation, right? Because of him raping her and.
Correct. He raped her. She did not agree. A woman before she becomes a man's wife has to agree.
Oh, okay.
Or her father has to agree to it. This was against her will. He raped her. So no, she is not his husband. And as it said there in the chapter, he committed fornication by doing that to her because she was not his wife.
But she still wanted to be with him, even though after that happened?
No, that's nowhere written there. It says that she was not allowed to leave. He kept her. He basically held her captive. When Jacob, her dad, sent his men to go get her, Shechem would not allow them to take her back. You understand?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah, but like, I just don't like it. And I just can't see why. See why they would like allow like him to marry her and all that stuff. And the thing is, like, when he's keeping her against her will anyway.
Right, but where do you see that they're actually allowing him to marry her?
Well, I mean, I don't. I'm just like wondering if what's gonna happen.
Right. See, you're going ahead though. We haven't got that far because you see that their plans are not to allow him to marry her, is it? Their plans are to kill him. Right. Yeah. So you got to stay in context of what what we read. Okay. We're going to get to everything that eventually happens, but they're not allowing him to actually marry her. If you remember in the chapter, they said they actually were trying to think of a way to actually kill him, his father, and everybody in that city because of the fact of what he did to Dinah. So no, Dinah was not his wife. He raped Dinah.
Mm-hmm.
So no, she didn't agree to become his wife, and certainly Jacob didn't agree for her to become Shechem's wife.
Yeah.
Does that clear it up for you?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anybody else got any questions, comments, or anything about Jasher chapter 33?
Nope.
Oh, wow, okay. It's pretty clear, huh? Okay. All right. So then what we'll do then, we'll go on and move on to Genesis chapter 34. And Brother Hugh, would you mind reading that for us? Brother Hugh? All right. Brother Anthony, would you mind reading that for us, bro?
I don't have my book by me.
Okay, never mind. Okay, yeah. Brother Hugh? Yeah, Genesis 34? Yes, sir.
And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her, and defiled her. And his soul clave unto Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel, and spake kindly unto the damsel. And Shechem spake unto his father Hamor, saying, Get me this damsel to wife. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter. Now his sons were with his cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they were come. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out unto Jacob to commune with him. And the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it. And the men were grieved, and they were very wroth, because he had wrought folly in Israel in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. And Hamor communed with them, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you give him to wife, and make ye marriages with us, and give your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you. And ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade ye in therefore, and get your possessions therein. And Shechem said unto his father and unto her brethren, let me find grace in your eyes, and what ye shall say unto me I will give. Ask me never so much dowry and gift, and I will give according as ye shall say unto me. But give me the damsel to wife. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor, his father, deceitfully, and said, because he had defiled Dinah their sister. And they said unto them, we cannot do this thing, to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. But in this will we consent unto you, if ye will be as we be, that every male of you be circumcised. Then will we give our daughters unto you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. But if ye will not hearken unto us to be circumcised, then will we take our daughter, and we will be gone. And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. And the young man deferred not to do the thing, because he had delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father. And Hamor and Shechem his son came unto the gate of the city, of their city, and communed with the men of their city, saying, these men are peaceable with us. Therefore, let them dwell in the land and trade therein. For the land, behold, it is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only herein will the men consent unto us for to dwell with us, to be one people, if every male among us be circumcised, as they are circumcised. Shall not their cattle and their substance and every beast of theirs be ours? Only let us consent unto them, and they will dwell with us. And unto Hamor and unto Shechem his son hearken all that went out of the gate of his city. And every male was circumcised, and all that went out of the gate of his city. And it came to pass on the third day, when they were sore, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, took each man his sword, and came upon that city boldly, and slew all the males. And they slew Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house, and went out. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain, and spoiled the city, because they had defiled their sister. And they took their sheep, and their oxen, and their asses, and that which was in the city, and that which was in the field, and all their wealth, and all their little ones, and their wives took they captive, and spoiled even all that was in the house. And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, ye have troubled me to make me stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And I, being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me, and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. And they said, should he deal with our sister as an harlot?
Thank you, Brother Hugh. That was a reading of Genesis chapter 34. So when we look at this chapter here, we see that it starts out the same way as Jasher chapter 33. First, we have the situation. Shechem actually rapes Dinah. And after that, of course, he actually, Jacob finds out. His sons are in the field. They come back to hear about it. They're angry. Of course, Shechem, talks to his dad about it, tells him that he's longing for Dinah, and asks his dad to go ahead and fetch Dinah for his wife. And, of course, they go and talk to Jacob. And they make the same agreement as is mentioned there in Jasher chapter 33 about, hey, make marriages with us. We'll give you our daughters, and then you can also take our daughters unto you for wives as well. You can dwell with us. You can trade with us. Your possessions will be our possessions. Our possessions will be your possessions. So, again, they're talking about the same thing that we're talking about in Jasher 33. Now, the difference between Genesis 34 and Jasher 33 is that Jasher 33 tells us how they actually decided what they were going to. They actually waited to actually decide how they were actually going to have a pretext to come against the city to slay them all. Whereas in Genesis 34, it just goes right into the storyline of what actually happened. All right. So of course Shechem asked Jacob, "Hey, it doesn't matter how big of a dowry that you want me to pay. Just tell me, I'll pay it." All right. And also Genesis 34 tells us that actually that Shechem was actually one of the most honorable in the whole city, which is interesting and as well in light of actually what he did to Dinah. So of course Genesis goes right into the storyline, telling them, hey, get circumcised like we are, and then hey, we'll allow you to have Dinah as your wife. And so of course, as it says in verse 19. The young man deferred not to do the thing because he had delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father. So, of course, they went on. They got circumcised, and, of course, they told all their people in the land, look, every male of you is going to have to be circumcised, so we can take their daughters as our wives and gives our daughters to them as wives, and all these different things, all right? And, of course, Simeon and Levi already had a pretext, as it told us in Jasher 33, where they decided what they were going to do at the advice of Simeon. So what they did was they waited until the third day after all the men were actually circumcised, and then Simeon and Levi, they came back, or rather the sons of Jacob came back, and they actually they slew all the males in the city with the sword, and they took Dinah out of Shechem's house. All right? The sons of Jacob, as it says in verse 27, came upon the slain, and they spoiled the city because of what the city had done, what Shechem had done to Dinah. Remember how in Jasher 33 it tells us that, they were saying all the city deserved to die because not one of them spoke up about what was done to Dinah? And so they slew the whole city, and of course they took the sheep, the oxen, the donkeys, they took the women and the children captive, and spoiled the houses. Now, someone may ask, why did they actually take the women and the children captive? Well, for one, if for some of those who were actually Torah scholars, I forget where it's at, but there's an actual scripture that says that when the Israelites were to go into a nation and conquer a nation, they were allowed to take the women as their wives, but they had to give them 30 days first to mourn for their actual family, and then shave their head, and then afterwards they could take these foreign women to be their wives. And of course, these foreign women still had to agree to worship the Most High. But I'm just mentioning that because that's actually in the law. So they could actually take these women, give them 30 days to mourn, shave their head, and these women could then afterwards become their wife. That's in the law. All right? So, of course, this is what happened. And, of course, Jacob is not pleased by them actually slaying the males of the city and things like that. So verse 30, Jacob tells Simeon and Levi. And, of course, why is he telling them? Because they were the main ones that actually conspired to do this, right, after Dinah was raped. So he told them, hey, you're going to make me have trouble, among these inhabitants of this land, among the Canaanites, the Perizzites, and because we're few in number, they're going to come together and make war on me. And this is going to be the end of me and all my people. But his sons answered him a statement. They answered with a question. They said, should we deal with our sister as with a harlot? Basically, they're saying, were we to let them make use of our sister as a whore? So they're asking their father, look, basically, or were you expecting us not to do anything about this? Were you expecting us not to render judgment? So that's the question they asked Jacob in return. And, of course, on next week in the book of Jasher, chapter 34, it'll actually go into more details about how they slew all the men of the city. So that was the summary of Genesis chapter 34 there. Does anyone have any questions or any comments they would like to point out?
When you say they had to shave their heads, are you talking about the women had to shave their heads or the men had to shave their heads?
No. In the Torah, son, it says that when the Israelites would go and conquer a nation, and I'll have to find a verse, that when they took the women captive of that nation, they could take those women as wives after they've actually let the women mourn for 30 days and shave the women's heads.
Yeah. And they had to pare their nails, too.
Okay, and they had to pare their nails, too.
Why did they?
Sarah, do you know what the scripture is?
Yeah, Deuteronomy 21 and 13.
So Deuteronomy 21 and 13. Let's just read that.
12. Sorry,
Deuteronomy.
It starts in 12, and then 13 continues on. Yeah.
Okay, so Deuteronomy 12.
Deuteronomy 21.
Okay.
12 and 13.
All right, so let's start at verse 11. This way, everybody on YouTube can see that, hey, Brother CJ is not making this up. Thank you, Tara, for finding the scriptures. Deuteronomy chapter 21, starting at verse 11. It says, no, we'll start at verse 10. When thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, and the Most High thy God hath delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive, and seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and hast a desire unto her, that thou wouldest have her to thy wife, then shalt thou bring her home to thine house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails, and she shall put the raiment of her captivity, or basically the dress of the clothing she had as a prisoner, and shall remain in thine house, and bewail her father and her mother a full month. And after that thou shalt go in unto her, and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife. So, everyone see, Brother CJ didn't make that up. Thank you, Tara, for bringing the scripture out. Verse 14 even, it says, and if it shall be, if thou have no delight in her, then thou shalt let her go whither she will, but thou shalt not sell her at all for money. Thou shalt not make merchandise of her, because thou hast humbled her. So we see the Most High gave them instructions in virtue. That's why that goes back to your question. That's the reason why I mentioned about them taking the women captive. All right? She had to shave her head. They had to give her 30 days to mourn. They also had to cut her nails. All right? So this was something they could take on a foreign woman as their wife in this circumstance, if they did it according to the scriptures here in Deuteronomy 21, verses 10 through 14.
But
any other question,
Virtue? And if they wouldn't agree to it, then they would just let the women go, right?
They would let the woman go.
I don't know why. I want to see why they would agree to it.
Well, son, remember, culture today is different than what it was then. We lost our culture. So, anybody else?
I don't get why though. Like, why do you have to necessarily shave their head and do that though?
Because the Most High said it.
Yeah, but I'm just saying I don't see the point behind it.
But the Most High said it though. That's the only thing we can. That's the only answer we can give you. Just like the Most High tells you, don't commit a fornication. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The Most High said it. He's the Creator. He knows better than we do. But that's something, if you need more understanding, you could pray to the Most High for clarity.
You don't sometimes question some of the things?
Well, so not a problem to question. But some questions, there's not an answer that may actually suffice your question. So you may have to pray to the Most High to get insight into why the Most High said for something to be a certain way.
Oh.
Any other questions or comments about Genesis 34?
Hey, Brother CJ?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
This may relate to what the women would put through. When you cut a person's head and clip their nails, a lot of infections is done away with because sometimes licensings are in a woman's hair, and also there's contamination under their nails. So this might be also a form of cleansing.
Yes, sir. Good point. Good point. Yes, sir. Thank you for bringing that out. Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
Yeah, I had. Oh, go ahead, everybody else.
Brother Hugh, I think it was.
Please, I'll say my comment after you.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to point out for some people who may be listening, they might think that what took place was cruel as far as killing, but I just want to point out in the law on Deuteronomy 22 and 25, the instruction was if a man went and forced himself upon a woman, then he should die.
Well, thank you so much, Tara, for bringing that out. I'm going to read it. Deuteronomy 22:25. But if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field, and the man force her and lie with her, then the man only that lay with her shall die. Let's see here. Now it says a betrothed. Let's see here.
That's somebody who's engaged.
Right. But it's interesting because when I look at another translation of it there, that word is not there necessarily. So so there's another also that talks about something though also. There's all laws that talk about dealing with when a man rapes a woman. And there's another one, though, I think is actually more direct. I can't find it right now. But still, the point is still correct, Tara. If a man was to rape a woman, according to the law, he was to die. So we know we live under grace now. We know that the Most High said, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. We know that. So we understand that today we won't carry out judgment like that and do that. Not us. But that still doesn't mean that the Most High can't carry out judgment to do that. But thank you, Tara, for bringing that point. Go ahead, Tara. Any other point?
I just have one more. Back to the whole shaving the head thing. I had wondered if, you know how the woman's hair was considered her head covering, like represented. It was said it was her glory. And I wondered if that had them shaving it had something to do because, obviously they became widows or no longer had the men that were originally that they were with to be their covering, if it had something to do with that. And that's just a question or a wonder in my head. I don't have anything to back that up, but just kind of a thought.
Yeah, because the one thing about it, is one thing interesting that actually they shaved her head, when she was in captivity, and it says in the book of Corinthians there that a woman doesn't have a covering, is as if she have her head be shorn, be shaven. So I had actually thought about that also too as well and everything, and I'm still doing a little more research too about the head coverings and everything, because I know there's a lot of dogmatics, that come out about saying some things about head coverings or whatnot, but when examining the actual scriptures there in Corinthians, they seem to denote position, but yeah, good point, Tara. Good point. Mm-hmm.
All right, that was it for me. Thank you, guys.
All right, Brother Hugh.
Yes. When we go back, and I wanted to deal with maybe the first half of maybe some of that question is when Levi and Simeon said that no one in the city spoke up. They decided that they were going to kill, actually punish that city. So they were going to take every male, right? And every male was going to be put to death, right? And it reminded me of 1 Samuel when David had got his group together to go to correct Nepal, because he asked him, he said, as long as your sheep were in our company, we protected you. And, when I ask you for something, the way that Nepal answered him, and David said to him, sort of like what Levi and Simeon were going to do to the city. And when they were going to punish him, David said that so and more also God do unto the enemies of David if I leave of all that pertain to him by morning light, any that pisses against the wall. And Abigail, Nabal's wife, understood what was going to happen, and she went to him with food and, you know, everything that she thought she would need to appease him because she understood the gravity of the situation, okay? And that David said that he was going to destroy everything, you know, in that city. And a lot of times they take the males and they destroy the males, but they do take the women and children because that can build up your own numbers, okay?
That's right.
You know, and that's the way that they destroyed cities or destroyed a people. And we can look at that and relate that, you know, to just what's been going on all over the world. It happened in America, you know, and still happening. If you take the male away, right, you can integrate the children and you know, women into your nation, okay? And that's something that I saw, you know, and I saw this happen look like many times in the Bible and in other places. So I just thought I'd ask.
Well, that's a good point, Brother Hugh. And for those that are wondering, the account that Brother Hugh was talking about with David and Nabal, you can read that in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 25 about that account. And where David said that. That's the book of 1 Samuel chapter 25. You can read that account of what Brother Hugh was talking about with David and Nabal. Another point I wanted to bring out, too, is that surely someone, you know, examining this all, what we read today, would have to think about the fact that if they were taking these women, you know, a fact that they were taking these women, as Brother Hugh was saying there, because they were going to wife some of these women. But here's the thing. You know that they already had wives. Many of them would have already had wives. And I know this is one of those things that's taboo that a lot of people don't like to touch on, but this is why I said that when we're breaking down the word, we have to break it down without having any emotions attached to it, but just break it down for what it is. And so the thing is this, the Most High, we saw in Deuteronomy 21, we read it there. You know, he didn't say that if they go to a nation and they're not married and they take a woman captive, to give them instructions on being their wife. And I say this because there's so much arguing among a lot of the brothers and sisters in the Hebrew Israelite congregations and things like that about this subject of men having multiple wives. And I've already said my piece on it, that a man should never take a second wife if his wife is not agreeing upon it, and if he can't provide the resources to take care of her. But the Bible gives certain laws and everything and guidelines that for those men that do take multiple wives, because there are some that do today, that of course it can't be a man that's actually leading a congregation. They are not to have multiple wives because it says that they would be taken away from doing the gospel. All right? But the thing is that the Most High gave laws in place for men that did, but they can't be leaders of the congregation, none of those things, because then they would be having their time divided. But I'm just bringing you all's attention to the fact that he didn't say if you were married not to take on these other wives, shave their heads, and different things like that. Also, there's something called the Levirate law, whereas remember when a man took a woman as his wife, and if he didn't have children with her, and he died, his brother was supposed to take that woman as his wife and actually have a child by her in the place of his brother's seed. Again, the Most High didn't say to them, if you already have a wife, don't do this. No, he said, if your brother dies without actually having a seed, you take his widow to wife, and then you have a seed for your brother. So the reason why, again, I'm not saying that even pushing an agenda or anything. I know a lot of people will not want to hear that, but this is Torah. This is there. And I'm not adding to it or taking away from it. This is what was there, and it's just one of those things where you never kind of put it together, you know what I mean, to see that. And so it's just one of those things I thought about because of the fact that the question was brought up, or the point was brought up about them taking the women's captive and things like that. So Anybody else have any points or questions or anything they want to mention? Oh, okay. I guess then silence is golden. Does anyone have any point or any question or anything else they would like to say here on the call? All right, so y'all just good, huh? What was that, Ant?
No, I said no, nothing here. Just still listening.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, hey. If nobody has anything else to say or add or point out there according to what we read, then we'll go ahead and dismiss. So next time we'll actually be at Jasher chapter 34, where we will actually read about the details of how Simeon and Levi slew all the males in the city there of Shechem. So I want to thank everybody here on the call. I want to thank everybody out there on YouTube that will actually hear this message. We thank you for joining, and we will say until next time, Shabbat Shalom.